Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Friday. Usually we'd be sitting down and doing the game preview today to whatever upcoming Premier League fixture Everton faced over the course of the following 2 or 3 days over the weekend. However, today a little bit different. The Premier League have confirmed earlier on today that all Premier League fixtures will be postponed this weekend following the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. The statement reads, at a meeting this morning, Premier League clubs paid tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II to honour her extraordinary life and contribution to the nation, and as a mark of respect, this weekend's Premier League match round will be postponed, including Monday's evening game. Richard Masters went on to speak a little bit about the Queen and the monarch and stuff like that, and the statement ends, this is aligned with the approach that the FA and EFL will take with their competitions this weekend. Further updates regarding Premier League fixtures during the period of mourning will be provided in due course. So not only have Premier League fixtures been postponed this weekend, but as have other EFL fixtures, and I believe every grassroots game as well that the FA are involved in, I believe has been postponed over the coming days as well, as I said, following the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Not the first sport to have been postponed. I believe there was a couple of sports announced yesterday. I think the golf might have been one. Cricket as well, also postponed following this news. However, there are sports that are on. I think the rugby is still on. I think there's a couple of other sporting events that will still take place over the coming days, and the reason for that is because the Premier League were actually given the choice as to whether or not to postpone Premier League games. The government's guidance was that those fixtures could continue, could be played, could take place. However, the Premier League themselves and the FA and any other governing body of football has decided against that, and this is a decision that has caused a little bit of uproar on social media, on within football fans across the country. And look, firstly, again, obviously, it's never nice to see anybody passing, and obviously the Queen was a extremely popular figure and a figure who was watched around the world by many, not only by anybody within the UK. And the discussion about football being postponed isn't too relevant to this actual situation in terms of the Queen's passing. Whatever you think of the Queen, whatever you think of the monarchy, obviously yesterday was a sad day for many people, and it was clear that it affected an awful lot of people. Now, I must admit, when the news was announced, I did feel like football would be postponed. I did feel like, there would be a lot of things that were closed and shut, and ultimately, went into a period of mourning, which I'm not 100% sure what actually means. Really sort of confusing day yesterday. As I said, whatever you think of the monarchy and whatever you think of the Queen and the family, it was a day that will live in the history books yesterday, and again another day over the last 5 years where I think everybody was sort of just sat there thinking, well, what happens now? Do we go to work tomorrow? I think a place is open. Is things going to continue as normal? What goes on? And as I said, we had the news today that the games were all postponed, and because I think of this coming from the Premier League and the FA as opposed to the government, I think it holds a lot more blame on those bodies, the Premier League and the FA, and I think it causes a little bit more frustration, and it causes a little bit more anger within football fans, because if ultimately the government had turned around a little bit like with COVID and said, listen, no football can take place, you can't play, then that's the decision, and the decision has been made, and not many people can argue against that. The fact that the Premier League were told that the games could take place and decided against it has caused obviously conversation about, are those tens of thousands of away fans that would have been travelling, not only Evertonians. I was travelling down to London on Sunday to watch Everton play Arsenal at the Emirates, but also, on average, every football club takes, a few thousand fans to an away game with them. You've got 10 Premier League clubs that will have been travelling away over the course of the weekend. You've got many Championship clubs, League One clubs, fans. There's probably, when you total it all up, maybe near enough 100,000 fans that will have paid a considerable amount of money during a cost of living crisis to go and watch their football club over the course of the weekend, who now will not be going to watch that football club. Now, obviously, conversations about repayments and, you know, people being reimbursed is probably something that the Premier League will go, that's nothing to do with us, get involved with your club, you know, in that sense. But it ultimately still leaves thousands of people out of pocket. These away days aren't cheap whatsoever. You're talking £100 to go and watch an away Premier League game of football. Obviously, as the, you know, the leagues go down, the lower leagues, they won't be as much. But especially, you know, if you're travelling across country, it's you know, you're spending in a day just on your ticket and your coach is probably near enough £100. So it's, you know, it's a big decision to have been made by the Premier League. Now, some people will say it's a mark of respect, and that's it. That's where it stands, and that's where it, you know, it ends. And, you know, as I said, everybody is entitled to their own opinion. There's other arguments to state that, you know, games being played and, you know, armbands being worn and tributes being made before the game would have been maybe a bit more of a public show of respect than just completely postponing the games. I mean, I'm not into the monarchy whatsoever, and I never really took interest in the Queen or her life or the life of any of them. Doesn't mean to say that, you know, obviously I'm sitting here happy, because ultimately somebody's lost their life, and you know, that's never nice to see. But I'm led to believe that the Queen was a big fan of sport, the Queen was a big fan of football, the Queen loved football, the Queen loved everything about sport. So surely it would make more sense for sport to continue, and the tribute be that in every game there's a minute silence, and there's you know, black armbands worn, and the tributes are paid through that way, rather than it just being, right, we're going to shut everything off and everybody's going to have to sit in their house for 2 or 3 days. I don't really see what good that does, if I'm being honest with you. Just my personal opinion, I don't really see what good it does. And for those people saying it's a show of respect, I don't really see how it shows respect either. Again, you might say, well, it's because, you know, the respect is that nothing takes place, but I don't really I don't really see how cancelling every event shows respect when you could show respect in other manners. Now, somebody was saying on Twitter earlier on, but what happens if during one of the minute silences in one of the games, a certain selection of fans who maybe, you know, didn't have a liking to the monarchy or the Queen disrupt that minute of silence? And that is always going to happen. That could happen with anything, any minute silence for anybody. That could happen with a minute silence for an ex-professional footballer. If, you know, I don't know, a certain group of fans didn't like the team he played for or didn't like him as a player, that could happen. It could happen for a minute silence for absolutely anything, where there could be disruption, and it has happened many a times over the years. So I get it. I suppose, again, I want to stay out of the politics side of it. I want to stay out of the you're right, I'm right, you're wrong side of it, because there's a lot of different opinions on social media. There's a lot of people who ultimately, because of their feelings towards the monarchy, maybe aren't particularly interested in this. There's a lot of people who, again, because of their feelings towards the monarchy, are heavily upset and believe this to be the right decision. The politics side of it isn't really what I want to focus on. It's the effect that this has on football. And I think what's really, really interesting is Richard Buxton reported earlier today that there's actually a likelihood that next week's fixtures will be postponed as well, due to the fact that I believe the funeral will take place next week. So that will be 2 weeks worth of fixtures postponed, given obviously that we're coming up to a World Cup come the end of November. When are these games going to be played? If they're played during the week, then how does that affect the travelling supporters? Because I'll give you an example. I was going up there with Ned tomorrow. Ned had paid his money, he paid for his ticket, he paid for his travel. Ned works on weekends, obviously, works midweek. Would he have been able to go up if the game was rescheduled to a Tuesday or a Saturday night? Maybe not, because he works. Would I be able to go? Maybe not. So that's what I'm saying. It's easy for the Premier League to go, yeah, well, we'll just reschedule the games for one midweek. But that doesn't quite work for the travelling supporters that were preparing to go up over a weekend when they had time off, or when they booked time off work, or when they'd arranged for different personal things to have been done. And again, it stinks for me, it screams for me of the Premier League and those governing bodies not really caring about fans, not really caring about, you know, the effect that these decisions have on football fans. And as I said before, we are in the middle of a real cost of living crisis, and whilst certain pundits and whilst certain, you know, members of parliament and whilst certain people who are really for this decision of cancelling sporting events can afford to just throw away hundreds and hundreds of pounds and not really be particularly interested about it, the average working class person, which, by the way, let me just remind you, football is a working class sport, can't afford to do that. So there's definitely a lot of questions about it. As I said, there's a lot of uproar on social media regarding this news about football being postponed and ultimately being cancelled for the weekend regarding this. I'm not surprised by it. I can't lie, I'm not surprised by it, but I do think I don't think there's been much thought of the sort of the domino effect that this could create from the Premier League, because as I said, there are ways to honour the Queen, there are ways to respect the Queen whilst these games still go on. I mean, the Queen passed last night and there was still football being played. I think there was a tribute at Old Trafford for the Man United game. I think there was one at the London Stadium with West Ham as well. So it's not like the world just stopped. I mean, I've gone to work today. I'm sure many people watching the live comments have gone to work today. People at work in restaurants, bars have gone to work. Again, it's a very unprecedented situation. It's a little bit like the pandemic because this hasn't happened in our lifetime, really. I know there might have been some people that remember the previous reign, but most people's lifetimes, this has never happened before. Once again, people don't really know what to do or how it works or what goes on now. Same with obviously with COVID, and as I said, it's very easy to go, well, that's the decision, that's what we're making it, but I don't think they've looked at what the actual domino effect is for those decisions. If you look at it purely from a selfish point of view for Everton Football Club, obviously we heard the news earlier on this week that Jordan Pickford picked up an injury and he was looking likely to be out for around about 3 weeks to a month. We haven't actually spoken since then. So from a purely selfish point of view, whilst I do not want to go 3 weeks without watching Everton Football Club, it would obviously mean that the recovery time for Jordan Pickford would mean he wasn't missing any games, which obviously benefits Everton because it means that, when we come back, we may have our number one goalkeeper. And this is just me sort of guesswork and that, again, on the assumption that this weekend's fixtures have been postponed, the funeral being next week, the assumption is next weekend's will be as well. They mightn't be. The Premier League might say, right, okay, we had last weekend's off, we can't afford it because of the World Cup, time frame, stuff like that, so this weekend's are on. But, as I said, from a purely selfish point of view, as an Evertonian, it's one game that Jordan will have missed that he now obviously will have time to recover for, and we won't miss him in that. Same with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It's another week for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to get fit. It's another week for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to work on himself, meaning that maybe this time for West Ham, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's fit to be in the starting 11, which obviously he wouldn't have been on Sunday. But it is it's definitely a situation that arises questions, and I think like anything really, and this isn't just I understand that a lot of people have had a liking to the Queen, and I understand that a lot of people have ultimately want to show that respect and want to show that that I feel that the necessary way to show that is to cancel every sporting event and to cancel everything and to shut everywhere down. But in this day and age, 70 odd years ago, when the last monarch was passed, maybe that was feasible back then. In this day and age, it just simply isn't feasible to close everywhere. It simply isn't feasible to shut everything down. It simply isn't feasible to go, you know what, we'll just stop. That does, look at how the pandemic affected society. Look at how the pandemic affected the economy. Look at how the pandemic affected everything. We're still seeing the effects of the pandemic. The reason the cost of living has astronomically increased, the reason the prices of petrol have astronomically increased, energy bills have astronomically increased, the reason as to why food has astronomically increased is because the government allowed companies, to try and make themselves look great. Oh, look, we'll give you all of this money to furlough your staff, this, that, and the other. We all knew full well that was going to come back and ultimately have an effect on us. We all knew that in some way, shape, or form we were going to have to pay that money back, and we are now in a cost of living crisis, and that is exactly, what the cause of that is. As much as the Queen is respected and as much as I understand it and as much as you might say, Cam, one weekend of football isn't going to change much, but it's the knock-on effect that this has on not only, working class football fans, which we all are, but also, the fixture schedule, the World Cup coming up. It's definitely something that has arisen eyebrows, and I don't think we live in a world where we can very much, for any reason, where we can very much just go, right, stop the world. Stop the world. Obviously, there's if people are in danger, if people's lives are at risk, then it's different. But as unfortunate of a situation as this is, and as devastating as it is for a lot of people, is it a situation where we can afford to go stop everything, just stop the world? I don't know. I don't know. And, you know, as I said, there is other ways to pay, and arguably more respectful ways to pay respect than just cancelling everything and saying, you know what, we won't engage in anything. I don't really see how that pays respect. I don't, especially from, again, I don't get involved in the monarchy. I have my personal views. I'm going to keep them out of it because this isn't a political video. But from what I'm led to believe, the Queen was a fan of sport, and the Queen was a liking to football and sport of all sorts. So, you know, surely this being played would have, these games being played and a mark of respect being shown in that way would have made more sense. And for people saying, yeah, but what about if the silences or the marks of respect are interrupted by certain fans? Well, what is the solution to that then? Are we, when we come back next week or the week after, is it just going to be like it never happened? Is it going to be like, oh, well, yeah, we had 2 weeks off, that was the respect, now we move on? Or is there still going to be, you know, a mark of respect? Or, you know, is that arguably worse because it's almost like we're hiding away and ignoring the situation? I don't know. Listen, you're always going to get people that, for whatever reason, feel that they don't need to show respect, or they don't want to show respect, or whatever. That's life. But this is definitely a decision that is causing a lot of talk. And as I said, I wanted to come on today because ultimately Everton's game against Arsenal on Sunday is being postponed. Usually I'll be sitting here doing a game preview. Usually we'd be sitting here talking about after the starting 11, Frank Lampard's press conference, etc. But the game's being postponed, so I felt it was important to do this video because I didn't want to just say, oh, we've not got a game now, so we won't do a video. But yeah, it's interesting. It definitely is interesting, and as I said, this sort of goes beyond the point of yesterday and what happened yesterday, and is more so the Premier League's decision, because the government, and as far as I'm concerned, that will have come from the monarchy, as to state, look, you want to play the games, you play the games. And you know, again, most people will have been in work today, most people will be in work over the weekend, because it's really, really interesting, isn't it, that you're seeing these big companies, these massive companies, who are devastated by the passing of the Queen and want to show respect and want to mourn, but also want their staff to be in the coffee shops, you know, from 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock in the night, and want their staff to be in the restaurants because they don't want to lose money. They want to show respect, but they don't want to lose money. And ultimately, people are losing money, and we won't be you know, we won't have that reimbursed, that fund. We won't have that reimbursed, depending on who you travel with, depending on who you go with. I don't know. Some clubs might say, you know, if you travel with the club, some clubs might say, we'll keep the money, and then when the reverse fixture's announced, then you'll automatically get that ticket and travel for free. Certain clubs might reimburse it, but that won't be reimbursed by the Premier League. That is absolutely for sure, because what the Premier League will do now is go, as they always do, we don't give a fuck about the common football fan. We don't give it the reason. Listen, I would sit here until my last breath and argue that the Premier League don't give a shit about football fans. The Premier League don't give a shit about the common football fans. There's many a reason to have that opinion. Timings of games, good timings of games for away travelling fans, situations like this. They don't care. And, you know, as I said, it's definitely something that's causing conservation. And ultimately, Everton don't play tomorrow, so I thought it was worth a chat. But as I said, from a selfish Everton point of view, it's a week of Jordan Pickford's recovery that we don't have a game for, which is good, and it's a week of Dominic Calvert-Lewin's recovery that we don't have a game for, which also is good as well. I mean, the golfer makes a good point. The golfer says, why did always sport that suffers the primary method of helping mental health? Being Evertonians, people may disagree with that, but no, you're right ultimately. And I think this is the argument that people are having. Either close everything and stop everything, or don't stop anything. Why are different things being picked and choosed upon? I can go out this weekend and go for a meal. I can go out and go for a few drinks. I can go to the pub. I can go and have a bevy. I can go for a scran. I can go shopping in Liverpool 1. I can do all of that, but I can't go to the footy. So surely if it's, right, we're going to cancel the football, surely it's, well, we cancel everything, we shut everything down. And that might be the case on the day of the funeral, because from what I'm led to believe, everywhere will be shut, and I'm fine, like Christmas Day, fine. But for this situation this weekend, you're right, football brings a lot of joy and a lot of excitement to many, many, many thousands of people. So cancelling it just seems a bit counterproductive for me. It really, really does. But yeah, look, we're not going to get into any of the conversations about whether people like the Queen or don't like the Queen, because as I said, it's irrelevant to this conversation. This conversation is about football being postponed. Spot on, Cam, regarding the disruption in the FA's indifference to how it affects fans. But that's it. That's what I'm saying. And ultimately, as I said, we very much live in a world where it is unrealistic to just stop everything now. For any situation, any situation, life, much as sad as it might be, and as much as it might be, as much as it might be devastating for people, and as much as people may need to mourn themselves, and ultimately, the society can't afford that. We've just seen what effect that has had when we've done it for 2 years or a year during COVID. The golfer says England versus South Africa is resuming on Saturday, cricket on Sky Sports. So other sports are resuming, other sports are carrying on going. The government, and I dare say it will have come from the monarchy themselves have said, carry on as. So why have the Premier League made the decision to not carry on as? It seems like a cheap, easy, I'm sure the cricket will be showing respect tomorrow. I'm sure the rugby will be showing respect. I'm sure every other sport taking place will be showing respect. It's almost like a laziness thing for me from the Premier League of, we'll just cancel everything. We'll just cancel everything. Well, there's no need for that. There's no need to do that. But yeah, listen, I don't know. All as I know is that Everton will now not be playing Arsenal on Sunday. That fixture will be rescheduled, and do not be surprised if that fixture is rescheduled for midweek as well, which again would show that the Premier League and the FA have got no care in the world for the fans and the travelling fans, etc, etc. Not just Everton, by the way, every other game that will be affected by this as well. So yeah, Liam says it does seem very pick and choose with it. Is it because of the Premier League and because of who they are? Some reason to feel obliged. No, but it would make no sense for them to feel obliged, because it would make more sense for the Premier League to try and fight for the fixtures to stay on. And as soon as I read before that the government had basically said, yeah, listen, you do what you want, I thought, well, the games will be played then, won't they? Because the Premier League won't want to lose money, they won't want to lose this, that and the other. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But listen, Everton don't play at the weekend now, and that's that. Look, there you go. We're going to leave it there. Then I just wanted to do a little video, obviously, because, there will be no game preview or instant match reaction or player ratings, because there's no game to talk about. I do want to do that transfer video. We are going to do a transfer video over the coming days. The transfer roundup, where we talk about the transfer window in its whole, ins, outs, and how we felt it went. And I also want to do another little video talking about Jordan Pickford's injuries and stuff like that. Adam, she says it's because sport is classified as entertainment, and it's a decision that no entertainment or comedy takes place during the morning period. See, that would make sense, but other sport is taking place and other entertainment is taking place. Comedy shows are still taking place tonight. As I said, other different sporting events are still taking place. So if that was the case, then surely everything would be affected. I don't know. Look, what do I know? All as I know is that Everton aren't playing this weekend. That's that. Anyway, big thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second if you are new. Don't forget to subscribe. Big thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments, and I really appreciate everybody for getting involved in the YouTube comments as well. But yeah, game's postponed. We don't know when it'll be rescheduled for. When we do know, we'll obviously be live on the channel discussing it, but I'm sure that won't be anytime soon. So in terms of content, I am going to try and get a video out tomorrow. I am going to try and get a video out on Sunday, talking a little bit about just other things that are going on at the moment. But yeah, one of them will certainly not be Everton versus Arsenal, because it's now been postponed. But anyway, big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you do, and we'll see you after.